Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Lecture number 17 of Surah Al-Baqarah is presented to you, which will cover verses 28 and 29. These blessed verses discuss the creation of man, the secret of death and life, and the value and worth of Allah Almighty. Previously, we have already covered the translation and details up to verse 27 of Surah Al-Baqarah. So, let's begin with verse 28 now.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون.
Translation. You, praise be to God, for He will revive you, He will kill you, He will revive you, He will return to you. How can you adopt an attitude of disbelief towards Allah when you were lifeless, and He gave you life? Then He will take your life away, then He will bring you back to life again, and then you will be returned to Him. The mention of death and life appears repeatedly in the Quran and Hadith, and it holds special significance. The mention of death and life is fundamentally important for understanding human creation, the purpose of life, and the life of the hereafter. In Surah Al-Mulk, verse number 2, Allah Almighty says,
الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا.
Translation. The Lord, who created death and life to test you, to see which of you performs better deeds. These verses tell us that life and death are a test, and the purpose of human life is to worship Allah and succeed in this trial. In verse 28, it is mentioned in this context that Allah Almighty brought every human from a lifeless state, that is, from non-existence, and granted them life. Then, there is a fixed time for a person's death, which is known to Allah. It is stated in Surah Al-Imran, verse 185.
كل نفس ذائقة الموت وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور.
Translation. In the end, every person has to die, and you all will receive your full rewards on the day of resurrection. Truly successful is the one who is saved from the fire of hell there, and is admitted to paradise. As for this world, it is merely a deceptive appearance. Additionally, the Holy Quran makes it clear that death is not the end of life, but rather a stage that leads a person to another life after being resurrected on the day of resurrection. After that, every person will have to account for their deeds. The belief in being resurrected after death is one of the fundamental beliefs of Islam. Mentioning death here is intended to convey that worldly life is actually temporary and mortal, and the existence of life in this world is actually a test. Allah Almighty has stated this in
Surah Al-Hadid,
verse number 20, with the words,
وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور.
And what is the life of this world except the enjoyment of delusion, indicating that worldly life is nothing but a deception. The purpose of saying this is to ensure that a person does not get lost in the pleasures of the world, and, deceived by these pleasures, does not consider worldly life to be everything. In contrast, regarding the true life, Allah Almighty has mentioned in
Surah Al-Ankabut,
in verse number 64, it is stated,
وما هذه الحياة الدنيا إلا لهو ولعب وإن الدار الآخرة لهي الحيوان لو كانوا يعلمون.
that this worldly life is nothing but a game and a distraction for the heart. The real life is the home of the hereafter, if only these people knew. Therefore, to prevent getting lost in worldly pleasures, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave a warning in this manner, as referenced in Tirmidhi Sharif, Hadith number 2307, where the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, to frequently remember the destroyer of pleasures, that is, death. These are the truths related to Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 28, which I have shared with you. Now, let's begin with verse number 29.
هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن سبع سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم.
Translation. He created for you all that is on the earth. Then he turned to the heaven and fashioned it into 7 heavens. And he is knowledgeable of all things. He is the one who created all things on the earth for you, then turned his attention upwards and established 7 heavens. And he is the knower of all things. What is meant by the words
سبع سماوات
in the verse? What is the reality of these 7 heavens? It is difficult to determine. Throughout history, humans have formed various concepts about the sky, or in other words, the beyond earth, based on their observations or imaginations, which have continuously changed. Therefore, it would not be correct to determine the meaning of these words of the Quran based on any of these concepts. We should simply understand that either it means that the universe beyond the earth has been divided by Allah into 7 firm layers, or that the part of the universe in which the earth is located consists of 7 layers. The words of the verse,
وهو بكل شيء عليم,
and he is aware of everything, highlight 2 important truths, which are the focus of today's lecture. One is how you dare to adopt an attitude of disbelief and rebellion against the Lord who is aware of all your actions, from whom none of your movements or deeds can remain hidden. The second is that the Lord, who possesses knowledge of all truths, who is in fact the source of knowledge, what other outcome can there be but to plunge into the darkness of ignorance by turning away from him, when there is no other source of knowledge and no other light from which a person can see the clear path of their life? Then what benefit can there be in turning away from this Lord? Under such circumstances, by the grace of Allah, today's lecture is complete, in which we have concluded our discussion regarding verses 28 and 29. In the next lecture, with the grace of Allah, we will present the translation and interpretation from verse 30 onwards. May Allah grant us the ability to understand the Holy Quran and to act upon its commandments. Take great care of yourselves, and we will meet in the next lecture. Until then, goodbye, and may Allah be your protector.